I'm going to go through questions 4, 5, and 6 pretty quickly just so that you can check your work. So question 4, what change is needed in sentence 2? I'm going to go up and mark off sentence 2, and I'm going to read it and look for anything that jumps out at me as a problem. They usually move quickly, comma, expertly navigating the busy sidewalk and making split-second decisions about where to step and where not to. I don't see anything that jumps out at me, so I'm going to go check each of those answer choices. So answer choice F says delete the comma. Let's see what happens if we do that. They usually move quickly, expertly navigating the busy sidewalk and making split decisions. So I can stop right there. What I know is that they usually move quickly is an independent clause, and everything that comes after it is non-essential. In other words, it doesn't have to be there. So if I delete that comma, I'm violating the rules of non-essential phrases. So I know that that's not the answer. And my reason is non-essential punctuation. G says change expertly navigating to they expertly navigate. So I'll go up and make that change and see what it does to the sentence. They usually move quickly, comma, they expertly navigate the busy sidewalk. Now with one like this, I'm creating an independent clause, they expertly navigate, but I only have a comma right here, and I can't make any changes except the change that's suggested. So I know that that would create a comma splice, and I don't want to do that. So I know that G is not going to be my answer. So H says change making to make. Get rid of that. See what happens. They usually move quickly, expertly navigating the busy sidewalk and make split-second decisions about where to step. Well, this and tells me that I'm joining two things. I have navigating and making, and I want to keep those endings the same. So that's not going to be my answer. Finally, I have J, change decisions, SC, to decisions, just a C in the middle. And of course, I'll look those up, and what I find out is that decisions with SC is not in the dictionary, but decisions, D-E-C-I-S-I-O-N, is in the dictionary, which means I can be 100% confident that J is my answer. All right, so we'll look at 5 and go through that one quickly too to check your work. What change, if any, needs to be made to sentence 12? And when I see that, if any, I know that no change needs to be made is an option. And before I can choose that one, I have to make absolute sure that I can eliminate A, B, and C. So let me look at sentence 12. He must be diligent about perspective because the art he's creating relies on an optical illusion. I see this he's right here, so I'm going to either decontract it or I'm going to see if it's possessive. He's creating doesn't seem to own anything, so let's look at it. If it says he is creating, he must be diligent about perspective because the art he is creating relies on an optical illusion. That sounds good, so there's no obvious problem. So A says change diligent to diligent, and there's 2 L's here and 1 L here. I'm going to come back to this one. I'm going to go eliminate those other ones first. Delete because. Let's see what happens when I do that. He must be diligent about perspective. The art he's creating relies on an optical illusion. Well, if I get rid of because, I can't do anything else to the sentence. I don't get to add any other punctuation. And getting rid of because all by itself creates a run-on, so I know that's not it. We don't want run-on sentences. Change relies to rely on, or relies on to rely on. Let me check that. He must be diligent about perspective because the art he's creating rely on an optical illusion. I know that art is my subject and that this word is my verb and that I have a singular subject, art, And so I have to have this S at the end of that present tense verb. I wouldn't say the art rely on an optical illusion. So that violates subject-verb agreement, which means that C is not my answer. And then I have D, no change needs to be made. I'm going to go back to A and I'm going to check those two words. And what I find is that diligent with two L's is not in the dictionary. Diligent with one L is in the dictionary, which means that my answer is A, and I can be 100% confident about that. So what change needs to be made to sentence 21? Let me find sentence 21 and mark it off. Although the results are short-lived and the work itself is difficult, Beaver remains determined to bring his art to the street. So I have my sentence marked off. I don't see anything that jumps out, no contractions that I need to check on. So let's see what they're asking me to change. F, change results with no apostrophe to results with an apostrophe. I know that apostrophes only do two things. They show possession or they show a contraction. So all of the results are short-lived. Results doesn't own are or short-lived. Let's see what happens when I expand it. Although the result is are short-lived, that doesn't sound right. So that's not going to be my answer. I'm pretty confident about that. Insert a comma after difficult. Let's see what happens if we do that. Although the results are short-lived and the work itself is difficult, Beaver remains determined to bring his art to the street. All right, there is a pause there. And when I look back at the beginning, I see this subordinating conjunction, although, which makes this part of the sentence, although the results are short-lived and the work itself is difficult, a dependent clause. And when I open a sentence with a dependent clause, I do need to have a comma at the end of that clause before my independent clause. So it looks like that might be my answer, but let me check my other two. H, change determined with one N to determined with two, and when I look those up, I find that determined with two N's is not in the dictionary, which means that's not an answer that I'm going to select, and determined with one N is in the dictionary, so I can cross that one out. Change his to their. It's my last one to check. Although the results are short-lived and the work itself is difficult, Beaver remains determined to bring his art to the street. So if I change his to their, I'm saying more than one person is responsible or owns this art. But even looking just at the next sentence or the next two sentences, he believes that art shouldn't be locked away in galleries. My art is for anybody, he says. So that right there, my art, looking a couple of sentences later, tell me that there's not more than one person and that his is the right pronoun to have. So I'm going to eliminate J. I'm going to circle G, and I'm going to be 100% confident that G is the correct answer.